more questions. What I wanted to
Sure.
ask was, has your being married 21 years, if you had to give yourself advice, your younger self advice before getting married, what would it be?
Try not to
Um,
get her pregnant before we was ready, so
beforehand.
that we could have before so we could have had that time to ourselves,
Okay.
because that
Hmm.
is, that was important, and we love our daughter. It's
Mm-hmm.
such a blessing, right? We love both our kids, but if we could have just had that year, 2 years, you know, to
Hmm.
have to ourselves, you know what I'm
Okay.
saying? We missed that,
Yeah.
Okay.
and
Yeah.
and I think that was important, and I think, you know, um, that's why, for me, that's why I look forward to, being empty nesters, because we get to make up for that,
Okay.
time
Okay.
and everything. But yeah, that would probably be the number one advice I had, would be like, okay,
Hmm.
let's could have made sure we could at least had that time together,
Okay.
make sure,
Yeah.
I would say that probably be the biggest advice I would give myself.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because I think as you enter into a partnership with someone, that first year, you should really be getting to know each other. You should be traveling. You should be doing, different
Mm-hmm.
things,
Hmm.
establishing um, your marriage routine,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is,
Mm-hmm.
and so when you throw, a kid in the mix, you don't really get into that. It's all about the baby. And so then you're
Mm-hmm.
finding times to be with each other in the interim. One of the
Okay.
good things that we did have was our date nights
Okay.
from
Hmm.
a
That's
young,
so
from when
important.
our baby, when Keela was little, like his mom was so happy to have a grandbaby. She took her every Friday. And then every other Saturday, my dad and stepmom and my sisters would take her.
Okay.
So we had at least twice a month, we had a full weekend. So then he was able to hang out. We would go Fridays and hang out with our friends, and then that Saturday we would come together
Mm-hmm.
and do something. Or if we had only that Friday, that would be our date night. So we had to sparse our times into,
Mm.
still keeping up our friend relationships, but then
Right.
also keeping up our relationship. So I would say, definitely that was a blessing,
Uh-huh.
but everybody doesn't
No, for
have that.
sure.
So,
For
Right.
sure.
making sure that you do have that time to get to know your partner, because you may be a year, into it and be like, oh, I don't know, this may
Right.
not have been the right
Yeah.
move here, but we gonna see. Or it could be like, oh, okay, this is great. I'm so glad. Okay, now let's start thinking about having kids and what we got
Right.
to do with that. So it's just
Yeah.
such a growth dynamic
Mm-hmm.
during that first time together. So
Okay.
Yep.
that's huge.
What advice would you give your younger self about marriage?
I was for me, it would be open communication for me.
Kelly?
I would probably have to say the communication piece, right? But also I think I would tell my younger me to make sure that I got a lot of stuff out of the way and out of my system, if that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
you want to be, when you get married, it's not the end of the world or nothing like that, right? But you don't want to have that where you still trying to figure stuff out either, in terms of playing games and all that other stuff. But definitely communication and keeping God in your marriage,
Yeah.
and everybody else out.
Right. Getting married, if you could, what advice would you give yourself prior to getting married? If if you could give yourself some advice, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, I would
Well,
for me, what you say, husband?
you first, ladies first.
I um for me, like I said, I told you about how we first got started,
Mm-hmm.
and I I'm grateful to my friend that I did give him a chance, because we do, even though we don't spend as much time as we could, I always have fun with my
Okay.
husband, because we're gonna always laugh, crack jokes. He makes me laugh, and he says things like no other. We can say things around each other that we wouldn't typically say, around
In
other
front of other
people.
people. Yeah.
We can be crass. We can just do some things, and we can make jokes about things that maybe shouldn't be joked about when we're watching TV or watching a movie or something. So I love the fact that I have opened myself up to getting to know somebody that has a lot of similar traits to mine. Now, there's some things that he does that I don't do. I'm not a drinker. I don't smoke cigars, that kind of thing. And so I do allow him, or not allow, but I don't step in his way when he want to hang with the boys and the thing like that.
Yeah.
Stuff you do, men's night or whatever they call it, fellas night or the night out or whatever, and let him have his way. So every day, like you said, you shouldn't be today where you were yesterday or 2 years ago, and just getting to that point was like, oh, we used to do that, but we don't do that anymore.
Yeah. What about you, Delvin? What advice would you give yourself? Now being married as long as you have, what advice would you give yourself, doing if you had to do it all over again prior to doing it?
I would tell me, first of all, this is something new to me, and I don't like being uncomfortable, because when you do things you're not accustomed to, you don't dive in it like you would normally.
That's how you change and grow, though.
Yeah, and this is something I dove into, and I was not comfortable at all. But the more that I dove into it and the more that I put into it, the more I'm getting back. Because trust me, I was like, what I'm gonna do? I'm only getting chicken from one place now. Well, before you had the whole city to get chicken from anywhere. Now you only get it from one place. Okay.
You silly. Let me ask you this. Absolutely. I know I said this was the last question, but I do want to ask this. Is your expectation of marriage different now than when it was before you got married?
For me, I would say no. And I think for me, coming from a single household, I know what people always say, oh, marriage a piece of paper, oh, I'm not getting married, da 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 da. I knew I always wanted to be married, right? And marriage to me is serious. It's no games when it comes to marriage. Once I got married, he was added to the list, and the list is, don't fuck with my kids and my mama. So now don't come over here with it, because I had time.
Fiercely protective of everything you just mentioned.
Yes.
Okay. What about you, Jay?
For me, I would say, you know what, Al? I'm kind of. I didn't have any expectations, really.
Okay.
I came in totally open, because just to be honest, 30, I think when we started talking marriage and all that, I was in my late 30s. I was comfortable prior to starting to date Kelly. I could have been by myself and would have been fine. So when it came to it, I didn't go in with any expectations. I say, well, I'm jumping out here. This is somebody I believe I can say I want to be with her for the rest of my life. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to see how it goes.
Okay.
So, yeah, for me, it was no expectations.
Okay. Has either of your definition of marriage changed since you've been married? Like what you expected from the onset versus what it is now? And how's that changed? How and why?
For me, I think I recognize more of the business aspect of it now than I did when I was earlier on. So say, for instance, when I was earlier on, I was like, I don't understand why people, get prenups. I mean, like like you love that person, you trust that person, like y'all both, keep Christ at the center of your relationship and all those kind of like idealistic things. But now we don't have a prenup. Neither of us had anything when we got married. we still ain't got nothing now. And so, but I understand it. And I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I mean, like, and I said that because Say for instance, something does go awry in a relationship and she and I never, discuss divorce. But some people have brought to the table something different than other people, and that's not fair to say that that person gets a piece of what you brought to the table if you didn't earn it while you all were together, or either if you look at inheritances. So say for instance, when my father passes away, I will receive an inheritance, and if I'm not alive, I ask that that inheritance go to my son, not to her. Now, that's not to say that, my son shouldn't, support his mother, shouldn't help her, whatever it is. And also, if he's a minor, then she will be responsible for those funds. And I completely think it's fine for her to use them for her and his living expenses. But at the same time, that is my father. You know what I mean? And I don't know that I think like a large inheritance should go to her just because she married me, if that makes sense.
Okay.
There's absolutely another thing that couples don't realize, because we get, we're very emotionally in tune when you talk about marriage, but there is a business side to relate to marriage for sure. Like finances is one of those top 5 reasons why people,
Divorce.
marriages end and divorce, because we don't have an understanding of where we stand with that, with credit, with life insurance, with all those things, how we manage money, and I've worked with couples, a couple before specifically. I remember, he was a young man, his mother was an attorney, and he was building his career. She wanted him to have a prenup because she knew, like, in her mind, I know potentially where my son is going to be. And so even with that, and the fiance didn't understand that at all. So I was trying to help them navigate through that. And, but I also was able to see some other issues with her that, I was like, run, kind of thing. But so I think you're right. There is a business side to marriage, and we have to embrace all of it and just have open conversations about that aspect too. It's not just about the intimacy and, the quality time. It's about everything that's going to shape our family. It's about all of that.
Yeah. What about you, Kanika? Has your definition of marriage changed versus where before you guys got married, what your expectation was? So Kanika, what about you and your definition of marriage? Like, what has it changed since you've been married? Your expectations? Did you have any going in?
Sorry, I'm trying to get comfortable in the chairs. I guess it's changed a little bit. I think my expectations have changed somewhat, and maybe when we were first married, my expectations may have been a little more ideal about, our interpersonal interactions, and just how I never thought that it would be perfect and that you wouldn't have conflict and things you would have to work through. But I think when we first got married, because we were, both in our 20s, I didn't think about how you change. So the things that you cared about or that you liked or was striving towards then could be completely different years later. So I feel like he and I in some ways are different people than we were when we first married, and not in a bad way, but that means that we're constantly getting to know each other and relate to each other differently. Certainly when we first got married, we both were, I think, eating and doing the same thing. So, sort of chilling and living life. And and now, he is, I think we're both on a health journey. I think he is definitely much more disciplined and committed than I am. Not saying I'm not at all, but still, just even our outlook on food and just life in general, I think is a little different than it was when we first got married. And so that means that we are getting to know new things about one another. And I didn't expect that necessarily when we first married.
Yeah, I think, did either of you have expectations going into the marriage? And were either of you married prior to getting married? Is it your
I was.
Okay.
I was.
Okay.
So, I was probably single a lot longer than she was, so I was able to deal with any baggage that I had in my marriage or past relationship. But of course, meeting with her, she still has some ties to some things. So my expectations probably was a little different from hers, I guess.
In what way, if you won't mind going into it? Like what was
Just being, I guess, I think I'm not gonna say she was emotionally still attached to her ex, but she still had some ties and I was expecting to go into the relationship where we both was free
okay.
of everything.
Okay.
So she, I think that's what my expectations were.
We were before we got married. That was all taken care of.
He said going into the relationship now.
I missed that.
Well, how did you, Terry, knowing that about intended, how did you navigate? I mean, because I'm assuming if you had that expectation, how did you guys work around?
So I feel like, and I even told her, like, when we got into the relationship or started dating, I probably should have asked more questions in the relationship when I met her. So, but when I did find out some of the issues or some of the ties that she needed to work on, I was willing to walk away until she dealt with it. But she made the sacrifice to go ahead and deal with it, and we moved forward. So.
All right. And for you, Bridget, like, how did you? What did you do to convince your intended, like, hey, I'm gonna get this taken care of? So, because it sounded like you guys were pretty much. I mean, you knew what you wanted. So, how did you convince her, like, hey? Because she could have took that as like, okay, you just talking, like, clearly you ain't done with this, whatever. Just hit holler at me when you done. How did you convince her, like, hey, I'm gonna take care of this so we can take our thing to the next level?
Al, just like that online profile, I was real direct, straightforward. I just took care of it.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to be in a long-term relationship. I knew I could be in a healthy relationship, number one. So I set out my goal, and my goal still is to this day, is to establish a healthy relationship throughout, a healthy, loving, positive relationship. So I was lining up things financially, spiritually, emotionally, just all the way around. Just lining things up and taking care of those things myself to prepare myself for the relationship.
Okay.
So my expectations was not put on Terry. I just basically put them on myself to take care of it. So I just was real direct with what I was going to do, and I just took care of it. And in doing that, Terry, thank God, she trusted that, and I think you still do trust that, right? So,
marriage is
very
that part, Terry.
Very transparent about what I wanted to achieve, and I just did it.
All right. Yeah, that's always key. All right. Let me ask you this. Has your definition of marriage changed since being married 21 years?
Mine hasn't. Because like I said, I really came into it with a realistic expectation of what it was, just through
what was that
my
expectation?
Marriage is something that, there's going to be ebbs and flows, ups and downs. There's going to be fighting, but there's also going to be a lot of good times with that. And so there's going to be a lot of good times with that, a lot of good memories and family and all those things together, all those things make up a marriage. And, and having a good partner and a good friend and, all of those things,
Okay. What about for you, Kasha?
I mean,
has your definition of marriage changed?
No, I think it just, as you mature in, in life and, because people, even though people stay the same as far as who they are at the core, you grow and you evolve and, so I think it just continues to add on.
Okay.
To the whole to marriage and to the lifespan, and you just really get to know the new component of that person.
Yeah, I think
as they
yeah,
grow.
right. I agree. I think it's so important that I heard one person say that could you love the person if they never changed? Could you still love the person and still be with that person if they never change? But if they do, you have to, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Griselda, that I think you have to allow room for the person to grow. As long as the person at the core is still the person that you fell in love with, I think it's fine. I mean, we should change. We should grow. We should evolve.
Yeah, we evolve in people. People are, evolve and grow, and you're mature.
Yeah,
so I think
absolutely.
it's always a flow.
Right. Okay. Let me ask y'all this: has your definition of marriage changed after 32 years?
Not really, but the only thing I can say is I'm glad. I want to say is I'm glad it wasn't no social media back then.
Hey, amen to that, brother. Amen to that.
You know what I'm saying? But like I said, we both come from old school.
Yeah.
We both come from old school ethics. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, for me, I kind of look at it like, I mean, it seems like when we argue, it be like little stuff, or it don't last a long time. It's like, okay, we know we're gonna be together. That ain't nothing, So it kind of.
And we still go on. We go on dates. You know what I'm saying? We try. We still.
We do date.
I'm still attracted. We still attracted to each other.
Yeah.
Okay. What was there anything about getting married that scared you?
Yes. So I did not want to get married. I did not really have any, I feel like, good examples of marriage, and it kind of seemed like it was a lot, especially like on the woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a woman that I should not fail. So if it's a lot, I'm gonna kind of do my best. And I felt like I did not want to do that, but he's very adamant about it. And so I had apprehensions because not seeing what I wanted from a marriage, and then kind of seeing, I felt like the work that goes into it, was really scary for me.
Okay.
How long did you date before you got married?
What was that, a year and a half, 2 years?
Year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always say that I believe like 2 years is really more than enough time to decide what it is you want to do. I mean, after that, you just, unless, like, I do know people who have been in long-term relationships and they're fine with that. They don't want to put a title on it. But I always said, if you want to get married, that I believe 2 years is more than enough time to decide, if you want to take things to the next level with this person. After that, you just pretty much spinning your wheels, spending money there. And then the last thing you want to do is get involved financially, buying big ticket items with a person that you're not married to. You know what I'm saying? So, but if you, and I know marriage is not for everybody, but Will, what did you do to, persuade your wife, like, hey, you wanted to take this, to the next level, like just shacking up ain't gonna do it for me?
I don't think it was necessarily a persuading, because like we were into each other, and like we had talked about like taking it to the next level. I mean, really, it was just like, like you trust yourself, you trust me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a man of faith, so trusting God, and we, our pastor has been very instrumental in our relationship, so we always go to him.
Mm-hmm.
When we have issues, and even prior to getting married, we would come to him with different issues about it. And so just resolving those issues early, and just, I mean, really just taking a chance. Like, again, it was no convincing. Like, she knew she wanted to be with me.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the whole idea of, again, marriage and not having any examples. It caused her to hesitate, but she was never not willing to get married.
Yeah, okay. I often tell him like he's the only person in the world that I will marry. So
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said he would be the only person in the world that I would marry, and so. And I feel that strongly to this day. Like,
I was just about that was gonna be my follow-up question. Would you do it again?
Yes.
There we go. Yes. All right. That's huge to hear, because you know what? Marriage license is the only one you can't renew.
I like
You know what I'm
that.
saying? It's the only license you can't renew.
You can't let it expire.
Right. That's good to hear. What was you said you didn't have any Shanae, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So real quick, so let me give you a tip.
Okay.
Whenever you think about her name,
a
little ghetto, but think Shanae from Martin.
Got you. I won't forget that.
I did.
Remember Shanae.
Shanae.
I did
okay.
immediately.
Yeah. I want to say Sheena. Okay, Shanae. You said you didn't have any positive
Like
examples of marriage. Thank you. Was there anything in particular about marriage that's really gave you apprehension besides not having positive examples about marriage? I know you said it was a lot on the woman. Is there anything in particular that really gave you apprehension?
Yeah, just kind of based on relationships that I had seen where they weren't even married. I mean, a lot in my family, I've seen my own mother kind of shouldering a lot of things, and most of the responsibilities. And even though she hadn't been married, I felt like that kind of permeated, and that was kind of like what I was thinking that my marriage would be. And then I had, some not so great examples. So the apprehension was really in being married, but really being single. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
So I want to kind of interject really quickly because the question was a good question, but I want to follow up question to her because you asked me what did I do to convince her? But it wasn't no convincing on me. So I guess for you, what made you follow through? What was it that you was like, okay, I'm gonna take a chance?
Will is one of the most solid people that I have met. When I say solid, he's solid and consistent.
Okay.
So, and I could see that, especially as soon as we started dating. There was this particular instance and where I was very busy. I was working. I probably had a couple jobs. I was in college at the time, about to graduate. I was supposed to go to a friend's party at Michigan State, and I was doing all these other things. I had my daughter from a previous relationship, and she was small at the time. And I'm running all around, and I needed something done, and I just did not have enough time in the day. And we're still dating, and he's like, "Don't worry about this. I will go do this for you. You go do the other things." And so having somebody be really that solid rock for me when I felt like I didn't have it and I especially wanted it. And he's always been that person for me. And so I didn't really do anything. He did it himself by being what he is.
Yeah. About your husband about this, I mean, his parents been married that long that he had this headstrong thing hey, whatever it is, we gonna work it out.
He told me that a long time ago. He was like, we ain't going nowhere. You ain't going nowhere. We good. We gonna make it, because in his family, there hasn't been a lot of divorces. There's a definite till death do we part. Everybody has been maybe just two divorces. Yeah. So that's what he knows. So when we went into it, he was like, we in this for the long haul. So
what did that yeah, what did that say to you though? I mean, was you impressed? I mean, were you like, oh my God, this is, I mean, what did that say to you?
Well, at first I was like, well, that's weird. Just being at 27 or, when we first started dating, when he first proposed, I was 26. So at that time I was like, okay. But, that let me know he was in it. And so I think sometimes people kind of go through and not knowing where their spouses stand. And so for him, I think it was him letting me know over that time frame, it's good. We're in this together. We're a team. Let's go. Okay, year 5. We're here. Let's go. Okay, 10. You ain't going nowhere now. You invested. Okay, what? Let's go. You're 15.
We're at 20 now, girl. You really you thought I was playing. We're at 20 now. You really for real. We're for real. We locked in.
Locked in.
Exactly. So during those times, Kasha, where you may have been contemplating walking away, was it the fact that Reggie was so committed based off what he saw is that what kind of helped anchored you? Like, you know what, we okay.
Yeah, I think he's such a good guy and good father to the kids, and we communicate, we have fun, so a lot of those things kind of played a big role.
Let me ask you this. I'm gonna put y'all
arguing
both
with
on the
that.
spot real quick. If you were not married, would y'all be friends?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. Because I don't believe in people being in your life, and especially like that, in being enemies after that time.
No.
I
don't mean.
Oh, like if we never got married.
Yes,
like,
would y'all be friends? Yeah, not that y'all.
Yeah,
divorced.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think we would hang out. We would it's just I think when we first took our first trip to Vegas, that kind of let us know that we could just be cool.
Okay.
And be friends, because we just had a good time and
right, both broke. We ain't had no money, but we just made it work. I was like, we always talk about it. I was like, our best trip when we just went to Vegas on the whim. I said, hey, babe, let's go to Vegas. And, I was like, we ain't got no money like that, but we made it work. And I was like, probably one of our funnest trips till we got older.
And you was like,
for the longest
him.
time.
Right, I love you.
Yeah,
splitting plates at the restaurants. The first day I think we got our own meals, and so it was so expensive. And we saw how much food we had left. We were like, we split meals from here, and it was like at the same time we were like,
like who would tell you, like, okay, like for real,
Who's
this
paying
is
all
really
this?
my
Like, for real?
soulmate. Like she's like, why are we paying? Let's just order something, we can split it.
All right, so we gonna